The truth is around here somewhere. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to be talking about the X Files Season 1, Episode 8. It is called Ice. There was no vanilla ice in this episode, and I flubbed the. I was just trying to make a dumb joke, and I flubbed the word vanilla, so I ruined it. It wasn't even a joke with a punchline, and I somehow ruined it. But welcome, everyone. I was looking forward to watching this because when I read the next time on, and saw that it was effectively going to be the X Files take on The Thing. It's this Arctic research base, although it's in Alaska, but it's the Arctic shelf or whatever. And it's these researchers who are been digging into the ice, and there's something there. And Mulder and Scully go to investigate what's happened with a team of scientists, and shenanigans, paranoia ensues. Right, and this episode even opens with this basically the conclusion of the previous team that were there. And the comparisons to The Thing are probably going to be thick and fast here. Like, it's clearly inspired by it for numerous reasons. One, obviously the location out in the cold, away from civilization, secluded, all that stuff. The idea that in this case, it's not like the entire person's body mutates or anything like that, but it is still something, an infection of some kind. It's like a tapeworm in the episode, but the idea that it's anyone could be infected and not themselves anymore is very much like The Thing. It leads to all the paranoia of that movie, and it leads to all the paranoia in this. There's even a dog that's infected, which is very much also from The Thing. So there's a lot of parallels to make to it, which is not a complaint. I kind of like when shows like the X Files and or a Buffy or anything that's doing standalone episodes with monsters, freaks of the week, science fiction, horror, whatever it is. I actually really enjoy when shows like this do their version of a famous movie. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it can be a bit tedious. Like, I always enjoy when an action show does a Die Hard episode, for example. And I think, I remember, I want to say there was a Doctor Who episode that did The Thing, like their version of The Thing at some point. Of the modern era. I was never hugely into it, but I kind of casually watched it for many years when it started the modern version. And I think they had one like this. There's definitely been other examples sprinkled throughout your genre TV viewing. Twilight Zone's had this kind of setting in the past, so I enjoy these types of episodes, and I think this succeeded in what I was wanting from it. Whereas I was really excited about last episode with the computer AI gone rogue, and that was a little underwhelming. It didn't quite hit the notes that I wanted it to. Whereas this one did, and it's helped by the fact that it's got a good supporting cast for the episode, a few recognizable faces. Xander Berkeley plays a doctor who goes with them to investigate the research base. You might know him from... He's got a small role. He's John Connor's foster father in Terminator 2, which would have been just a couple of years before this. But he's had bigger roles. He was in 24 for a bit. He's popped up in a lot of things over the years. A young Felicity Huffman plays another doctor that goes to investigate the base. Most people probably know her from Desperate Housewives. Even the other faces, I couldn't have told you who they were before I saw the episode. Like, the names didn't ring a bell. But when I did notice their faces, so there's kind of this kind of likable guy who likes listening to old football games on his Walkman. That's a face I recognize, and I'm just checking his IMDb's. But in Face Off, he was in Eurotrip. Not that I remember any of that movie, but he's a face that's popped up a lot. Probably more so in the 90s and maybe 2000s. But yeah, he's in a 2.5 Men episode. Not that I saw much of that. He's in a Kirby Enthusiasm. He pops up in places. And then the other guy, the pilot who flies them to this remote base, he seemed familiar as well. He's not sticking out. He's not got any big credits that I'm seeing immediately, but I've definitely seen his face in some stuff. But the point being is that it was a really strong ensemble to join Mulder and Scully, because this couldn't just be a 2-person episode. This had to be a team, especially since a couple characters are going to have to die. Yeah, the episode starts with this message that was left from the team. The research team is up there. They were put on this mission to dig deep into the ice, and apparently it was all going great. It was going great. They'd been there for a year or something like that, and they broke the record for how deep they went, all this stuff. And it's just in this last week, on the build up to like this all happening, that it started to go awry. Which obviously, as the audience, you're immediately thinking, oh, they found something in the ice that's done this, right? Again, very much like the Thing. So, Mulder and Scully assemble the team, and because it is an ensemble piece, it does take the time to introduce the other characters. Xander Berkeley and Felicity Huffman come up and introduce themselves, and it kind of like foreshadows. I think the writing here is actually kind of cute, that it foreshadows the paranoia, because Xander Berkeley says, hey, can we all like show each other our credentials or our IDs, just so we're all who we say we are. It paints that he's already a little bit like paranoid in general, I guess, but he's making sure that everyone is, so they all whip out their IDs and it's all fine. But the one guy who doesn't is the pilot. He shows up and he's kind of this hotshot pilot. He's like, yeah, I'm the only one crazy enough to take you up to that place. Yeah, because they've got like a 3-day window before the weather gets bad enough again that they can't leave for a while. So he doesn't want to show ID. He just kind of like laughs Xander Berkeley down and says, no, that's not happening. You come with me or you're walking. That's your choice. Which is interesting because he ends up being the first one that's infected and dying, which kind of, so you could almost read that as a little bit of foreshadowing. But they find all these dead bodies. I appreciated the tape itself that they watch before they go, which we see some of being recorded in the opening teaser, which is the sort of the man who's got his shirt off and he's bleeding and he's saying, we are not who we are. It's something to that effect that he's saying over and over again, which made me think of The Thing, maybe even makes me think a little bit of Event Horizon. And I don't like Event Horizon. Event Horizon gets a lot of praise on the internet, and I think it's shit, but people like that movie. So they get there and there's all these dead bodies, and they're like, okay, what the hell happened here? And they're attacked by the dog. Bear, the pilot, gets bit, and it's like, okay, fine. That sort of kicks off our sequence of events, and it turns out this infection turns you aggressive, right? It feeds off something in your body that the end result is the person becoming very aggressive. They're I guess it's kind of like it's okay. I was going to compare it to maybe some versions of Red Kryptonite for Superman, but then I thought, but it's kind of like a vampire losing their soul in the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Neither one of those is a perfect comparison, but and Bear starts showing signs of getting angry. He wants to leave, but as soon as they're examining this like alien tapeworm and they're examining the dog and they're realizing what's happened here, that all these men killed each other. And the last two, this was the teaser scene, the last two, whilst they're fighting, stop fighting and both shoot themselves, right? They basically do a suicide thing together. And it's clear that they did this because they knew the dangers of this thing getting to the greater world, getting to the population. And immediately, Mulder, Scully, all of them pretty much, because this is the thing, all the other characters that have went with them, other than the pilot, are all scientists. The football guy's he's geology. I think Xander Berkeley's just a straight up medical doctor, and maybe Felicity Huffman was biology or something. I can't remember, but they're all kind of agreeing, hey, we should check we're all not infected before we even dare go back. This is kind of a big deal. This could be a problem. And Bear doesn't want to, but he starts to act aggressive, and they have to fight him down, and all the rest of it. And he ultimately dies, and it's like, oh shit, we can't leave, we have to make sure we're not infected. So we get these scenes of them looking for these like little black boils that were on the dog, and all the infected people seem to get them, and they're looking on each other's bodies. They're making sure they're doing it in groups so that no one can lie about it. Everyone's checking each other out. And that night they go to bed, and they're all kind of like, Scully like barricades her door with the chest of drawers just to make sure no one can get in, because they're all kind of getting paranoid. They're all realizing that if someone's infected, they may not even know they're infected. Now, there's nothing to actually suggest that that's the case in this episode, other than there's a period in the middle where you think Mulder might be infected and might have killed someone whilst infected, but he doesn't seem to think he's done it. So it maybe just floats the idea that, maybe he is the killer and doesn't know about it, because the football guy turns up dead in the middle of the night. Someone slits his throat. Although, it kind of annoyed me that Mulder never tried to defend himself. This wouldn't have been foolproof, don't get me wrong. But, Mulder and Scully have guns on them, and they're walking around with their guns all the time. And he's holding the gun, and he finds this dead body. It falls out this fridge or whatever it is. And the others run in, and they're like, oh my god, you killed him. It bugged me that Mulder didn't say, I'm holding a gun, and his throat's been slit. Now, it's possible that I did that, threw away the knife to confuse you, right? It's not foolproof, I'm not saying it is, but it's kind of weird he doesn't try to at least, float that observation out there and just be like, hey, I'm holding a murder weapon in my hand that's actually easier to use, but I didn't use it. Think about that for a second. But Scully's kind of defended him a bit, but it does get quite tense. Mulder starts yelling enough to where you're thinking, oh, maybe he is a little bit aggressive. But he's also been accused of murder, and they're starting to gang up on him, so it can also make sense why he's just naturally getting defensive and mad, and his emotions are being heightened. So it makes sense. So they lock him in the pantry or whatever it is, and the other three are sort of like researching things and try to deal with things. They're getting agitated at each other. And it's kind of very much a who killed the sports guy, right? That's kind of what a lot of the middle of the episode, and even up to the late end of the episode is, because they basically come up with a plan that actually cures someone. This is unlike The Thing, where there was never a cure. But the cure they came up with is that two of these tapeworm things can't occupy the same host, and they find out that basically if you put two in one body, they'll kill each other off, and it'll fix the person. They test it on the dog, it works, so they're like, okay, let's go in and check out Mulder. But of course the danger now is that if Mulder is not infected, then they're just infecting him rather than giving him the antidote effectively. Scully wants to be sure, and she checks him out, and they come out saying, I don't think he's actually infected. The others start fighting them because they disagree, and it's only at the last second when they're putting this tapeworm thing into Mulder's ear that Xander Berkeley notices the back of Felicity Huffman's neck moving, because that's the other thing, is that everyone who's been infected, it looks like there's literally something swimming under their skin behind their neck sometimes, and he sees that, and then he immediately pushes her away, and it's all about them just sort of trying to tackle her down now and pin her down and put the second worm in her ear so that she is effectively cured. She's still quarantined at the end of the episode, as is the dog, to make sure everything's okay, but that's how they resolve things. And honestly, yeah, most of this was really fun to watch. It was fun because it was kind of like it's like a horror movie slumber party, right? Where all these characters are trapped in one location, they've got nowhere to go, they have to put up with each other, there's power dynamics at play. At one point, Xander Berkeley says, hey, Scully, you've got guns and we don't. If you get infected, it's not really fair to us. So Scully just takes out the clips, empties all the ammo out and just throws it outside into the snow. And is a sort of show of oh yeah, you're right. So, okay, let's address that. There is a gun from the crime scene earlier that's in an evidence bag that Felicity Huffman eventually tries to use, but it doesn't really go anywhere particular. It's interesting, this, though, because it's kind of putting Mulder and Scully in this situation where they're the only two people there who seem to, know each other well, right? They're a pair. They're a pair of characters who at this point, they've built up a bit of friendship, a bit of camaraderie, and they're kind of looking out for each other in the way that the others might not have quite as much. But at the same time, it also raises the stakes where, Scully's concerned for Mulder if he is infected, and he does look a bit unhinged at points in this episode. So that push and pull of, her feeling conflicted about what to do with Mulder when it seems like he might be infected is quite entertaining to watch, because unlike, say, the second episode where I felt like they were pushing their limits too far as what they would do for each other, I think now 8 episodes in, I was kind of into this a bit more, where the concern they were showing for each other, and Mulder checking the back of her neck and being kind of gentle with his hand. It was almost romantic the way he was kind of touching the back of her neck to see if there was anything moving or whatever. Those little moments I really enjoyed, and I just there's something about this type of setting that's kind of cool. The idea that not only are they isolated and there's no one around for a long way, it's also just going to be a quick death if anyone tries to walk outside for very long. So they're kind of in this safe place, but almost like being in a spaceship, that safe place can quickly become quite deadly if something goes wrong. I really like that vibe in stories like this, and I think this used it well enough, and gave me an interesting. I was sad that the sports guy died because he seemed quite innocent and likable. The tough guy going out first is just classic horror movie. Like, okay, if the tough guy can go out that easy, then they're all screwed, right? It's setting up the stakes in a quick, simple way. In a weird way, there's almost like less stuff to analyze with this episode because it is just so straightforward, kind of its take on the thing, right? It's doing a lot of the things that movie does pretty successfully. The paranoia, the not trusting each other, that any one of us could be infected. It's more condensed, of course. Obviously, I do have to point out the very, very bad CG on the worms themselves when they're in the jars and they're swimming around. It looks quite bad, right? It's dated. It's of its time. I'm not going to harp on it because there's no point. It's 1993 TV CG. There's really not much we can talk about there. At least I'm assuming it's CG. It looked like CG to me, but I mean, maybe they used some sort of weird optical effect or something. Maybe it was literally just like a little CG. A little CG. Something made me think of Alien at the end of the episode, actually, but in a way, kind of the inverse of Alien. So it just cuts to them being back at the other part of Alaska, and they're talking about Felicity Huffman being in quarantine. And Xander Berkeley's saying, yeah, they're going to keep her in quarantine, blah, blah, blah. And Mulder's like, oh, we have to go back out there. This was an alien life form. Which Scully doesn't seem to be on board to agree that it's alien, but obviously agrees that something came out of the ice. Like, this thing came out of the ice and did all this, but she's not necessarily ready to agree that it's alien. Although, it was pointed out when they were analysing the ice early on that there was a high degree of, I think it was ammonia was in the ice. And like, it was pointed out that the atmosphere of Earth could never have caused this, which would clearly suggest that something alien to Earth, interfered and was now part of the ice. So that's solid enough logic. But the thing that made me think of Alien is that when Mulder's like, oh, we have to go back and do further research, study this thing, Xander Berkeley reveals that just after they left, like half an hour later, the government of some kind burned this place down. It's torched, it's gone, the evidence has been wiped off the map. And Mulder's like saddened by this, and it feels like another cover-up, like kind of thing. Someone somewhere doesn't want this thing to be researched or found. And Scully says, because Mulder says, it's still down there in the ice. And Scully says, leave it there. And then, the ending is this somber ending of Mulder just having to accept that and walk off with her. But this is the reason why it reminds me of Alien is because it's the opposite of Alien, in that Weyland-Yutani, the evil corporation in Alien, always want to get the alien. They always want to get the eggs, the xenomorph, whatever it is, because they want to turn it into a weapon. And that's like their shtick throughout the entire franchise, is they want to exploit it, but of course it's too dangerous to actually exploit. It'll just get everyone killed. That's the running thing in the Alien movies. And I actually really like at the end of this episode that for once the cover-up from the government, from whatever level of CIA or secret organization is doing this, this actually seems like one that I think we can get on board with as the audience. Scully's right. Don't bring this up into the world. Keep it buried. Don't let anyone else go near it. Like, for once, it seems like the quote-unquote evil, company men have made the right call here, and I think Scully's on board with it, and I think Mulder just has to begrudgingly accept it. But it gave me a chuckle, because Weyland-Yutani wouldn't make this decision. They'd be sending people in. They'd be going excavating, and they'd have like a 200-man team out there pulling this ice up, looking for alien goodies to mass produce into bioweapons. This was the sensible approach, bizarrely. Even if they were technically covering up evidence of an alien life form, this one should probably stay buried. And I kind of like that as an ending to the episode as well. So, yeah, had fun. Ice. Good episode. And a good standalone episode, more to the point, which is nice. So, yeah, we'll see what's coming next time, shall we, on the X-Files, because I had a good time with this one. Next episode, we have space. So we're going from ice to space. Are we actually going to space? I doubt it somehow. I don't think there's any episodes of X-Files set on like the space shuttle or whatever. So here's the description on IMDb. When a space shuttle mission is sabotaged, Mulder suspects it may be the work of an alien spirit that inhabits the body of a former Gemini astronaut. Well, that took a wild turn. Alien spirit, you say? We'll see how that goes. I'm not going into this one as enthusiastic as I was the last two. I'll say that, but we'll see how it shapes up. But that's my thoughts on the Ace episode of X-Files. By all means, do hit the like button. It helps out a lot. It helps more people find the reviews and find the channel. So please do. And you can, of course, you can support the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep it all coming. And of course, worth mentioning, MailFuzz Movies is the other MailFuzz YouTube channel, which has the movie podcast. There's a science fiction movie podcast over there, where I talk to someone else about science fiction movies most weeks. So go check that out if you want to hear more science fiction analysis and stuff of that nature, as well as some other movie podcasts and other subjects, including horror. So thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?